that mean you're going to campaign with him, or you're going to have him campaign with you side by side?
We're going to be running a strong campaign based on Colorado's interests and Colorado's future. My job, I think, is to protect Colorado's way of life. We've got a wonderful way of life.
That was not a yes or no. Yes or no?
We'll see what the president's schedule is. We'll see what my schedule is. But the Coloradans are going to reelect me based on my record, not the president's record, not what the president's done, but what I've done and how I've stood up for Colorado. That's the case I'm going to make to Coloradans.
Wow. One more chance? You're not going to say yes or no, are you?
Let's see what the schedule allows. I'm running for the election, not the president in Colorado.
In the midst of all this nation debating and debunking every single day, let us not stray far from the magical word midterms. With the course of this nation may be determined in much more forceful fashion than a simple presidential election in 2016. And that could mean certain elected officials will be running as fast as they can from a certain president. Now, just as a little background, what you just saw here was a very interesting conversation that happened in Colorado. When President Obama decided to go to Colorado, and again, this was all part of his last couple of days where he was in Texas and in Colorado. It is interesting because Senator Mark Udall is the one that Barack Obama was there in order to raise money for. Of course, we all know that the president, no matter who it is, no matter who the politicians are, they will always spend a tremendous amount of time going around the country to try to raise as much money as possible for their efforts and for the efforts of those who want to be associated with them. The interesting thing about Mark Udall is when the president appeared in Denver, the senator was supposed to be at his side. At least initially, he was to be there when the president addressed people. He was not there, unfortunately. He showed up later at an event, but as for the initial time that President Obama spoke, the senator wasn't there. It makes us wonder if indeed there are people trying to dance as far and as fast as they can from Barack Obama. Let's welcome back to MidPoint the senior politics writer for U.S. News and World Report, who will speak on this and a whole lot more. David Catanese joins us today. David, thanks so much for being here.
Good to be with you.
David, we just heard Mark Udall speaking in Colorado. We know that he was, as I mentioned, supposed to be with President Obama at a certain event in Colorado. He was not, waited until it was a private event. Do you get the feeling, as many people are saying, that you have maybe in Colorado to begin with and other places, the Democrats are just trying to put a little distance between themselves and the president right now with everything that's going on?
Yeah, I think that's fair. I think, in most states, the president's approval rating is underwater. In red states, it's worse. But even in Colorado, a swing state, more of a purplish state, the president's approval rating is far under that 50% mark. So I don't think it's surprising when you have Mark Udall, a senator who is in a tight battle for re-election with the congressman out there, Republican Cory Gardner. It is not surprising that he doesn't want to share a stage with the president, doesn't want to be on that front page of the Denver Post with his arm around the president. I always think these things are kind of silly, though, because you're going to get the negative story of not being there anyway. That's going to occur anyway. But continually, cycle after cycle, we see when a president is unpopular, when a senator is in a tight re-election, they don't want to be associated with him.
Aren't we almost looking in many ways at politicians who are just a little bit cowardly? Because as you said, sooner or later something's going to happen here. You're going to get photographed with. You're going to have to be connected with the president. You can do as much as you can on any side to dance away from the controversy, but maybe just take it and face it and then go in front of your constituents and the voters and say, look, here's who I am, not who this president guy is right here. It really does seem cowardly to a lot of people.
Yeah, I think that's fair, but politics is about self-preservation. And remember, these guys are in a room with a campaign manager, with a pollster, with consultants telling them, look, this is not worth the hassle. The Republicans are going to use an ad of you with President Obama. If you go on that stage with him, if you share that stage with him, they fear it's going to be used against him. And a lot of these candidates, a lot of these Democrats are trying to separate themselves, not only from Obama, but from Washington altogether. That's very difficult when you're an incumbent. But a lot of these Democrats we're seeing in races in 2014 are trying to localize these Senate races. They're not trying to talk about the national issues, whether it be immigration or Obamacare. They're talking about more parochial interests back at home. And so that sometimes has to do with the national dynamic. But I don't think there's any question that if President Obama was at 60% of the polls, Mark Udall will be right on the stage with him, with his arm right around him. This is just what we see in these midterms.
Be my best buddy. That's what it always says here. You wrote an interesting article recently in U.S. News & World Report. You talked about the Senate 7, the GOP still short of the magic number, but I want to focus on the very first sentence you had in there. The Senate seats being tempered, or at least the Republican quest is tempered, due to a slate of mediocre candidates who are underperforming expectations. Please do us a favor, David. Tell us exactly what you mean. Don't sugarcoat it anymore, please.
Well, look, if you began the year, most people at the beginning of the year were going to say that Republicans were poised to take over the Senate. They need 6 seats. Republicans were pretty excited about that prospect. They were optimistic about it. Here we are in July, 4 months from the election, and they're not there quite yet. And you're starting to hear from Republicans and people that are involved in these campaigns saying, look, some of these candidates aren't turning out as well as we thought they were going to. They need 6 seats, a pickup of 6 seats. It looks like they're halfway there. The next 3 seats are tough. You go to Arkansas, where Representative Tom Cotton is in a real tough fight with Senator Mark Pryor, even though the president has one of the lowest approval ratings in Arkansas than any state in the country.
Well, here's a very good article that we have sitting right up here. I wanted to interrupt you and point this out. Right on the screen right now, we have an article that asks the question, what's wrong with Tom Cotton?
Right, and my colleague and I, Lauren Fox at U.S. News, dive into that a little bit, where he's a first-term congressman. He's not as well known. We're hearing that he's not connecting as well on the stump. Remember, Mark Pryor has a legacy in Arkansas. His father was a governor, senator, congressman for 30 years. So that type of stuff does matter in a smaller state. Arkansas is the smallest state population-wise in the South. It matters when you get around the state, and if you can backslap, if you can talk on the stump, if you can kiss the babies, if you connect, all that stuff matters. And what we found down in Arkansas is that is mattering in that race. Doesn't mean that Cotton can't win the race. I don't think he's a dead duck. I think he's still in the game. But he doesn't have the lead that many Republicans thought he was going to have at this point. Remember, after July, we're going to be in August, and this is going to be crunch time. And and other states are showing this as well. North Carolina, where you have the House Speaker Tom Tillis against Senator Kay Hagan, another Democrat trying to distance herself from the president. She right now has a small lead, but it is a lead. So, once you start going around the map, the overall environment looks very good for Republicans. They have more opportunities than they've had in past cycles. They're getting the candidates they want out of these primaries, which hasn't occurred in 2010 and 2012 when they were looking to recapture the Senate as well. So they have the environment, they have an unpopular president, but in some of if you drill down the individual races, they're just not quite there yet. So I think it's still a crapshoot. It's still a 50-50 crapshoot on whether they take over the Senate.
I only have 2 minutes left, but I want to get you to give me a one-word answer on this right now. Georgia, Kentucky, North Carolina, Arkansas, Alaska, Iowa, and Colorado. Which ones out of those are truly in danger right now for the Republicans?
In danger for the Democrats or the...
I'm sorry, well, in danger for the GOP right now, because here's the GOP still trying to get those 7 states right now. Which one of those 7 states do you find that the GOP is most looking at right now that is most dangerous?
Well, as far as the ones that they're trying to pick up, I would say North Carolina and Arkansas are their best bets right now. That gets them to 5. They still need 2 more. And remember, Kentucky and Georgia, Democrats have pretty good female candidates in those states that are running robust campaigns, raising a ton of money. Republicans favored, but again, not slam dunks. If they lose either, if the Republicans give away either Kentucky or Georgia, that's going to make it very tough for them to get to the 6.
All right, about a little over a minute that I have left here right now. The Republican National Convention going to Cleveland. The folks in Cleveland are very happy. Good decision as far as you're concerned?
You listen to journalists, they didn't really like it when it was compared to Dallas and Las Vegas.
But it's always the journalists who are always looking for the restaurants. We're all looking for the restaurants and the great places to go afterwards. Face it, that's what we're doing here. We're making it personal.
Exactly. It's selfish, and it really doesn't matter what we think. Reince Priebus, the head of the RNC, said this was a business decision. Cleveland could put up the money. They could guarantee an arena in June. And remember, the Republicans want to move up their convention earlier this time around to have it in June or July. It looks like it's going to be in July. But this really comes down to a business decision. Do you have an airport? Do you have hotels that are within a 25-mile radius? Do you have an arena that's available with capacity? I think that's what it came down to. A lot of people will look into, the Ohio angle, that it's a battleground state, but Republicans haven't carried the state that they've held their national convention in since 1992.
We also have to see if LeBron James is going to be there, because certainly that will make all the difference in whether or not the Republicans are all happy to be in Cleveland. Absolutely. David Catanese from the U.S. News and World Report, an excellent article on the Senate 7. We'll absolutely have you back again as we get closer to the midterms, my friend. Thank you very much.
Hey, thank you for having me.
All right. And also, let's not forget that if anybody in Cleveland is listening, the media will take all the freebies they can get. Those free tickets to the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame will make everybody very happy. Trust me. All right, coming up next, the latest from the Middle East, the American border, and more, all courtesy of the Newsmax mothership website. We will check in, as we do on a daily basis, to find out exactly what the top news is, what we are covering, and what you need to be reading. We'll also get an update on the news coming up next, right here on MidPoint, where every day we question everything.